Hello and welcome to The Resilient Garden, a new gardening show shot and made in Colorado for Colorado gardeners. I'm Austin and I want to invite you on my journey into native plants, low water plants, and gardening in Colorado's unique and beautiful landscape. Throughout the show, I'll be working to transition my home garden into a low water native plant oasis. Last year, I worked to re-landscape the yard, and a lot of the plants just didn't make it. Between the heat waves we had throughout the summer and our hot and dry winter, there's a lot of stuff that just couldn't come back or dried out. So I want to figure out what we can do to make this a green space that's easy to maintain and ready to go. I want to invite you on my journey as I work to transition my home garden to native and low water plants. We'll also talk to local experts, get useful tips, and tour some of Colorado's most beautiful gardens. So join me as we work to create the resilient garden. It's springtime and it's time to start cleaning up and preparing for the new gardening season. A lot of our plants last year didn't make it, whether from a summer heat wave or a hot and dry winter. So there's a lot of cleanup to do. We also had a really early warm start to spring, so the weeds have gotten a bit of a head start on me. So we're gonna work to clean those up. In addition to that, I've found some invasive species growing in the yard, but we're gonna get the yard prepped and ready for some new plants. Last year when we redid this backyard, it was primarily dirt and a whole bunch of weeds. Primarily thousands of these little prostrate knotweeds. They're tiny, most of them are easy to pull up, but some of them can really be stuck in there and have a big thick taproot. So I definitely want to stay on top of these because we spent way too many dozens of hours pulling them up last year. We do have mulch in our beds, but weeds can still get through some of those, especially as it gets thinner throughout the winter. So I've got some creeping bellflower here. It's been years since we bought the house. It used to be this whole back portion of this yard. I dug a lot of it up to put in a vegetable garden here, but it still comes up around the edges of that garden and the sidewalk and obviously here at the greenhouse. So we're gonna work on pulling some of that up. It's got a pretty extensive root system, so it's really hard to fully get rid of, but I'm just gonna work on pulling up what we have here right now and then staying on top of the sprouts as they come in. It's a little tricky because this does have a really nice pretty flower when it blooms, but this creeping version of this bellflower is pretty invasive. It's not on Colorado's noxious weed list, but it does spread and take over like crazy. So, we really want to work on controlling this and getting this out of here right now. Probably find a little dog poo mixed in here. He really likes to poop on these weeds. Oh, yep, there you go. So it's not perfect, but I was able to get most of the creeping bellflower up. There's still little bits and pieces here. And as I said, it's a really hardy plant. I'm sure I'll be pulling it throughout the summer. And eventually we'll throw some more mulch in here and some new plants. We've got more creeping bellflower over here, and they're starting to crowd around my Russian sage. So we're gonna try and get that out of here as well. Found one more section of the creeping bellflower I'm wanting to get rid of today. And while I work on that, we're gonna head out to the City of Lakewood's greenhouse to meet with their lead horticulturist. Today I'm with Angie Carabetta, the lead horticulturist at the city of Lakewood. Angie, where are we today?
We're at the city greenhouse. This is where we grow all of our plants for the entire city. So we have annuals, perennials, and interior plants. There's over 10,000 plants in here right now.
Wow. Are there any plants that we can look at? Some native plants that you have in the greenhouse?
Yeah, so here's one of our native grasses. This is going to be a taller one. These grasses started in here probably mid-February. They only get watered 3 times a week for 10 minutes. In a greenhouse, that's low water, even for starting seed and everything. After they're done in here, they actually end up going into what we call our cold frame. They get acclimated to the temperatures in there, and then we go into a hoop house and then basically slowly progress them into the garden or out into the native area.
Grow them into that.
Mm-hmm. So we have an echinacea, and these aren't our native echinacea. Those would be purple. So we have our red. These do work well in low water. Sometimes even when you overwater them, then that's when you're going to see an actual issue when they start dying. And then we have a penstemon. This one is again not our native, which is the Rocky Mountain penstemon. We have quite a few native penstemons. Most penstemons are low water use, and this is one of them also. These in particular are going to Lakewood Park. We had an annual bed there, and we decided we were going to turn it into a perennial bed, but low water perennial bed. We have yarrow over here too, but this is, again, it's not our native yarrow. But it doesn't require as much water.
Yeah, still works here well.
Usually the yellows are the plants that are native here. We have some light blues too. If you want a red or more brilliant colors, sometimes it's you do have to go outside of that window of natives. They still require less water, just they aren't in a position to not ever be watered, where natives, they can be put out into the native area and grow just fine.
Do pretty well.
Yeah. They actually collect a lot of seed from Green Mountain, and that's what we actually have growing here. So it's locally collected seed, so that way it's for this area. So if we were to go up to Vail and collect seed, we wouldn't have the same outcome. Just because you're collecting seed locally, in the state of Colorado, doesn't necessarily mean it's for your environment.
Directly local. Yeah, I know it's easy to think oh, this is Colorado, I can grow this, but they're very different climate zones across the state.
Denver is 5280, so that's where we are in elevation. We are closer to the sun, and we're also in a city. So there's the concrete and everything else. So you have a different environment in the local city. Then you go further out in the foothills, you're a little higher up, and you're closer to the mountains. The storms can stay in this area, so you might get more water than you would also in the city. If you're up in the mountains, 10,000 feet, the temperatures change. You are closer to the sun, but you're colder for a longer period of time. They do have a lot more moisture up there. You also have the larger pine trees, and that creates a whole different environment for the floral ground. So your entire yard can be hydrozoned. So basically you can have environments where you could grow plants that can grow really well in the water because you have more shade, because you have more trees, or the drainage just goes through one area. So it's about utilizing the water also in your yard and utilizing the other well-established plants to create these hydrozones. So you don't necessarily have to have things that don't require any water, but you will have areas that cactus might be better in that area. It's closer to the house, south facing, it's hot. So you want cactus, succulents, things that can grow there. And then you have on the north side of your house, maybe you have drainage coming off of your house and it's shaded, so you can grow your dogwoods and your daphnes and things like that. So just understanding that no matter where you're at, everything is it's got its own climate.
All right, well, that's about it for the creeping bellflower in this area. I'm sure there'll be plenty more throughout the summer, but let's go see what else we can clean up today. Here we've got some black binweed. This is another weed we're gonna have to get rid of. They have a nice little heart shape, but like the creeping bellflower, this is an invasive species that will really take over. This particular species is not on Colorado's noxious weed list, but there are some variants of binweed that are. It's real viney. You'll see in some areas it actually grows up fences and gates. This one's a little easier to pull up than the creeping bellflower. Oop. Here we've got more black binweed. And of course everyone's favorite, little prickly lettuce. These ones I always find hard to get the whole root out. Let's see. Nope, broke it off. So I'll have to come back and dig that out later. I've got a nice little weed puller for that. Well, last year we decided to redo our backyard. And we started by figuring out a way to reduce the grass. What we settled on was doing a smaller portion of grass in the middle with a whole bunch of flower beds around the edges of the yard and the edges of the grass, and then a walking path that could loop around the grass, back to our greenhouse and raised bed, and then back around to the front. So we started with outlining the grass section and then the path, and then fit in the flower beds in between. And I think we came up with a real nice shape and a nice flow kind of through the garden. The dogs have since kind of ran out some of that gravel. We did a crushed asphalt and some of the mulch, so it's a little bare right now, and we're gonna need to work on getting that cleaned up and straightened back up, and then replanting a lot of those beds. For years, we really tried to just turn this whole backyard into a lawn. That's what it originally was. By the time we bought the house, it had turned into dirt and a lot of weeds. We tried for a few years, and that seed just never really took, especially near the back where there's not a lot of shade from the trees. So we did turn that back into a raised bed, and we have since shrunk down the space of grass when we redid everything last year and kind of made this weird amoeba squiggly shape for the grass. After the hot winter and the dogs running all over, I really thought it was gone. It still might be, but it's starting to come up after we had a lot of rain last week. So we'll see if this comes back or not, or if we need to reseed or transition that. One thing about the box elder is, come spring in the warmer months, it starts to put out these offshoots going up and out from the tree. What I'm going to do today is start to prune these back for aesthetic reasons, just to streamline the form of the tree, but also for the health of the tree. These offshoots take resources and nutrients from the tree, and we want to focus where those nutrients are actually going. So it's usually easy, especially before they get too big. They tend to just pinch or fold right off. I'm going to just gently set these down because I know we have some ladybugs on them. And we do like the ladybugs. I don't know what it was, but something just went after something else up above me. Luckily it didn't come down on me. I think some birds are getting a little territorial up there. Now, I have in the past waited a little long to clean up some of these, and so I do have some thicker little knobs sticking out here. Those ones did have to be sawed off or clipped. So get these off, these can go right in the compost bin. We're back with Angie at the Kendrick Lake Demonstration Gardens in Lakewood, Colorado. Angie, what can you tell us about where we are today?
These are the demonstration gardens that got started in 2004 by Greg Foreman. We acquired this property from Foothills during a drought season, and basically we had a corner full of weeds and no turf, brown. So it started with 3 beds, and now we have 11. Our whole point of these gardens is to show low water usage. We use rock gravel or 1-inch river rock to actually mulch the beds. It actually has a higher water holding capacity than mulch or just your plain soil. There are some studies even thinking that mulch, yes, it does help with weeds, but it may not actually be as helpful with retaining water. Pea gravel and squeegee to weed in it is a lot easier than...
Oh yeah, like it doesn't get caught up in the mulch.
Yeah.
Yep, I've done that. I've pulled a whole clump up. You're like, "Argh."
Yeah.
Yep.
Each bed is supposed to represent a zone or an area in Colorado. We have an all pine bed, we have a Great Plains bed. The one directly behind us is called our rock bed. We have a lot of things that will grow in crevices and rock closely. If you were going in the mountains or in the foothills where there are a lot more rocks, these plants can grow in there pretty well. We do have natives, but then we also have some stuff that is not native that does well in the crevices. So we have about probably over 500 species of plants in these gardens. So that's between your cactuses all the way up to your trees. We just have so many different things that can grow in low water or are native. So
Yeah, that work just everywhere. Yeah, it's beautiful. I'm just looking at it, you can see the difference all the way across. Can we go take a look at some of the beds?
yes. So right behind us is the Great Basin bed. So this is to represent some low water but shrubby area in Colorado. So we have a large variety of natives in here, and then we also have some more unique plants. Right in front of us is Thermopsis. You could see this along the foothills and the plains. This grows pretty well. And then we have some Artemisia and some rabbit brush. And then we have manzanita. A lot of people like to replace their junipers with a manzanita. It has this the low growing junipers that kind of spread. This one you can cut and it will not look like you tried to kill it.
easier to manage.
Yes, and it's really known for the actual stem. If you look at it, it actually holds in the rock and the soil, so you can kind of see where maybe you don't have a foliage, but you do have the stem, and it's really gorgeous, and it kind of creates some space in some area where you can plant other plants in between there.
We're still early in the season. We're here in, what is this, mid-April, and we've already got some color.
We can have flowers in bloom into February, all the way into November. It just is the way that the season comes and goes. Also depends on our weather. It's really crazy because it doesn't matter when you come here. It looks gorgeous. Even in the winter, we have the grasses that will turn a dark purple. If you wanted to really get a good picture of what a xeriscape garden is, you come here every month and just kind of explore and take pictures. You're gonna see different wildlife, different everything. So
yeah, you can really see what it can be and what you can do with it.
Yeah.
This is what's amazing about this, is so many times I think, oh, I don't want to just rocks and stuff, but it looks great with all the plants, and the plants look great, and it's not just cactus, which I think has been the bad rap that xeriscaping has gotten.
Yes, I think that a lot of times people mix up xeriscape with xeroscape, so it's just rocks and very little plants, but you can have a full garden and you can have a variety of things. So this is a demonstration of what it may look like when you get above 9,000 feet. We have aspens, we have a pinyon pine, a bristlecone pine, Rocky Mountain juniper, a lot of shrubs, and a lot of cold, hardy plants, things that really enjoy the snow for a longer period of time. The way that we are trying to demonstrate this is we look at what water totals are at that elevation, and that is how much water we try to actually put on this garden. We just try to emulate what the weather patterns would be down here. So we're still trying to be efficient. We try to use these things to also keep the ground cooler, so we have a lot more ground covers. We have a lot of just the shade from the trees and stuff where we can plant perennials around them and stuff.
So it's kind of laying it out so that some of the plants provide the system for the other ones.
Exactly. When I first started here, they were watering this garden maybe twice in the summer, and sometimes not at all if we did get enough rain. As you can see, it's been here for over 20 years, and a lot of these plants have been here for over 20 years.
Yeah.
You do see some failure every once in a while, like extreme heats, and some plants just don't make it. It's just they say they're low water, but that particular plant said, no, I want more.
Yeah, they're not all gonna make it, I guess.
No, they're not all gonna make it.
And that is a lovely garden. If you haven't been there, I'd highly recommend checking out Kendrick Lake Park's demonstration gardens over in Lakewood. We're just about finished with the weeding. We've still got some to go, but for now, I'm going to take inventory of what made it and didn't make it from last summer and through this hot winter. So this is a great plant for Colorado. This is snow and summer. These all started really small last year. Without any water, they came back real strong, growing together and filling out the bed this year. And of course, tons of these nice little flowers here in spring. In front of me, we've got some stone crop. These just popped back up in the last week or so, and they're doing really well without any extra attention. We've got a periwinkle here. It's one of my favorite plants that we put in last year. I'm just glad it popped back up, and I'm excited to see where it goes from here. So here we have the remains of a small blue spruce. We actually had 3 of these. They are native plants, but more for the alpine region. And these ones probably would have made it had our dog not fully trampled it, which is a pity. These are some of my favorite trees. They have that nice blue color and just a real Colorado icon. This bed still needs a little cleanup, but the creeping Jenny in it has come back real strong this year. When we put this in last summer, we did it here and over under our locust tree. Did really well in both spots, really took off really quick, and it's come back pretty strong here. I'm happy with what we're getting. The catmint's another plant that's come back real strong. This is an eastern catmint, I believe, and we have a Persian catmint on the other side that's coming up pretty well too. And behind it, we've got some locust, little baby locust trees spitting out. These always come up, and got to stay on top of them. And another one here, and there's actually a line of them all kind of around this area along the roots of the locust tree. And now it's time for some helpful tips from this episode's local expert. Is there a particular plant that you just love and it's easy to get started with on low water plants?
I really love, like I said it, Rocky Mountain penstemon. I think it's foolproof. I've put it in gardens that haven't gotten water. I've put it in gardens that have gotten tons of water, and it thrives. It just will work. It's got foliage like throughout the whole entire season, so you have at least green, and then you will get flowers that are this deep purple, and they're really gorgeous. For a shrub, I think the easiest one is the golden currant. I think that I've had that really establish itself pretty easily.
What would you tell someone who is maybe looking to get started in that type of gardening and have a more resilient, drought-hardy garden?
Don't do a lot of amending of the soil. Don't do a lot of extra stuff that you don't really need to do, because when you're growing natives or low water, they need to get used to the soil that's there. They need to get used to the environment that's there. So when you start changing things, then those plants that are supposed to be hardy in that soil are no longer going to be hardy in that soil, or they're going to do things that you weren't expecting. You have a whole yard, don't try to do everything at once. It's a slow process. So like here, started off with 3 beds and now we have 11. Your front yard isn't going to just all of a sudden be this big, beautiful thing. It takes time. And so maybe start with a corner of your yard and then slowly make it into a whole garden. I know we like to think big, but sometimes starting small and then expanding over time and not really trying to overthink what the process. Like grab a few plants you like and see what happens.
Yeah.
It's all an experiment.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Everyone's kind of just going with it and learning together.
Yes.
And that does it for this episode. Until next time, I hope you'll get outside and enjoy some of Colorado's many wonderful green spaces.